In our headlines on this Friday, April 18th, here in South Korea. US President Donald Trump claims a trade deal with China is likely to be sealed over the next 3 to 4 weeks, even as his administration declares plans to impose fees on Chinese-built or Chinese-flagged vessels docking at American ports. Meanwhile, on the local political front, the People Power Party holds a roundtable with its presidential hopefuls, each taking 9 minutes to voice thoughts on Korea's future, while later on this Friday evening, the Democratic Party's presidential contenders will face off in their first televised debate. And back on the international front, the US and Ukraine may ink a minerals and economic cooperation deal next week, amid comprehensive efforts including Europe to ensure a tangible ceasefire to halt rampant Russian aggression in Ukraine. We start in the US today, where much optimism has been shared about a potential deal on trade with China in the foreseeable future. Our Shin Se-byuk has the latest.
U.S. President Donald Trump says he believes trade negotiations with China will be done over the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Oh, we're going to make a deal. We'll have a deal. I think we're going to make a very good deal with China. I think that you will see we'll make a very good deal with China.
During an executive order signing ceremony on Thursday, Trump said the U.S. is in talks with China, adding that Beijing had reached out several times. Earlier the same day, during his meeting with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, Trump also brushed off concerns about China allying with Southeast Asian nations to counter U.S. tariffs, adding that, quote, nobody can compete with Washington. Meanwhile, in a move to curb China's influence in the global shipbuilding and shipping sectors and promote U.S.-built vessels, Washington announced new port fees targeting Chinese ships. The U.S. Trade Representative's office said Thursday that port entry fees will be imposed on Chinese shipping companies, firms operating Chinese-built ships, and foreign-made car carriers. The fees will be introduced gradually starting October 14th, 180 days after the announcement. The rate will begin at $50 per net tonnage and rise annually to reach $140 per ton by 2028. Industry watchers say the move is expected to benefit South Korean shipbuilders, which compete directly with China. Until now, many shipping companies have opted for more affordable Chinese-built vessels, but with the added cost burden, orders may shift towards Korean shipyards. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
A critical minerals deal may finally be sealed between the US and Ukraine amid efforts to ensure a ceasefire to halt the Kremlin's aggression against Kyiv. Our Pyongyang reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump said Thursday that Washington and Kyiv could sign a minerals and economic cooperation deal as early as next week.
Well, we have a minerals deal, which I guess is going to be signed on Thursday, Scott, next Thursday, soon. And I assume they're going to live up to the deal, so we'll see. But we have a deal.
While Treasury Secretary Scott Benson later clarified the likely signing date as April 26th, the agreement appears close to finalization. Later the same day, Ukraine's first Deputy Prime Minister and Economy Minister Yulia Sviridenko announced on X that Ukraine and the U.S. had signed a memorandum of intent. Although she did not mention a minerals deal directly, she wrote that the memorandum would pave the way for economic cooperation and Ukraine's reconstruction, adding that the final agreement would benefit both nations. When asked about Russia's response to a ceasefire proposal, Trump said he expected a reply soon and reaffirmed his desire to end the war.
We'll see what that will be. We're going to be hearing from them this week, very shortly, actually. And we'll see, but we want it to stop. We want the death and the killing to stop.
Meanwhile, Ukraine and the U.S. joined Germany, France, and the U.K. for high-level talks in France to discuss ending the war. The participants expressed support for Trump's peace efforts and discussed steps toward a lasting peace, including a full ceasefire, deployment of multinational troops, and stronger security guarantees for Ukraine. The 5 nations are set to reconvene in London the following week to move toward a comprehensive end to the Russia-Ukraine war. Pyongyang, Arirang News.
And U.S. President Donald Trump publicly rebuked Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell following the latter's remarks about inflation and growth concerns in the face of sweeping U.S. tariffs. Our Lee Sing-jae has details.
U.S. President Donald Trump continued to increase the pressure on U.S. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell on Thursday, stressing that he should lower interest rates. He also said Powell's termination cannot come fast enough. Trump's comments on Powell came a day after the U.S. Fed chair warned of potential economic consequences from U.S. tariff policies, saying they would likely generate higher inflation and slower growth. Trump also responded to a reporter's comment at the Oval Office on the same day that Powell said he wouldn't leave his post even if told to by the U.S. leader.
Oh, he'll leave. If I ask him to, he'll be out of there. But I don't think he's doing the job. He's too late, always too late, a little slow, and I'm not happy with him. I let him know it, and if I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast, believe me.
However, Powell's concerns appear to have been echoed by other central banks around the world. This includes the European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde, who said the sharp increase in tensions in international trade and the resulting uncertainty are likely to reduce exports in the Eurozone and lower growth. World Bank President Ajay Banga also expressed his concerns over Trump's tariff policies earlier this week, stressing that tariff hikes create conflicts that result in lower transparency and growth. International organizations are also warning of an economic slowdown. The World Trade Organization said international trade volumes will decrease this year, while the International Monetary Fund said that there will be a notable downward revision in the new economic outlook report to be released next week. Lee Sing-jae, Arirang News.
South Korea is betting on its shipbuilding capabilities and its potential to purchase more American LNG to seal a tariff deal with the U.S. Now, this is according to Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol while speaking in Vietnam on Thursday, the final day of his three-day visit there for trade talks. Pointing out that the Trump administration itself had underscored these two sectors, Minister Cho shared hopes to leverage them during bilateral trade negotiations in Washington next week. Now, South Korea is the world's second largest shipbuilder after China, and it faces a 25% U.S. reciprocal tariff, while Vietnam faces a 46% tariff. Meanwhile, findings for March show a slump in South Korean steel shipments to the U.S. According to the Korea International Trade Association, Korea's steel exports to the American market in March plunged almost 19% on year. In fact, shipments of steel sheets for cars fell some 33%. Back in March, the Trump administration imposed 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports into the U.S. market. The imposition nullified South Korea's annual duty-free steel export quota of some 2.6 million tons, which had been signed in 2018 under the first Trump administration. Acting President Han Kang chaired an emergency cabinet meeting earlier on this Friday that approved the government's first supplementary budget in 3 years worth 12.2 trillion won, or some $8.4 billion. The extra budget will seek to address urgent national tasks, including wildfire recovery, disaster preparations, and trade, as well as AI competitiveness. Now, it will also ramp up support for small businesses and vulnerable groups affected by recent economic challenges. A total of 93 projects across 14 ministries have been selected for immediate execution of such plans this year. To finance this newly proposed budget, Seoul will tap into $2.9 billion in reserves and raise the remaining amount by issuing bonds. The budget will head to the National Assembly early next week for approval. On the political front, partisan primaries are in full gear. The People Power Party held a roundtable today with its presidential hopefuls, each taking 9 minutes to speak freely on South Korea's future. Every PPP candidate also claimed that he or she was best positioned to defeat the front-runner of their rival party. Meanwhile, later on this Friday evening, the Democratic Party's presidential contenders will face off in their first televised debate. The 80-minute discussion is scheduled to start at 8:30 p.m. and will cover politics, the economy, foreign affairs and social issues. An unprecedented artistic endeavor has brought together space science and K-pop to result in a remarkable creation. Our Park Eun-woo covers this event.
Home Sweet Home, a popular song by K-pop star G-Dragon that captured fans around the world, has now gone beyond Earth. G-Dragon made history last week when he became the first K-pop artist to send music into space. He shared what that meant to him with great expectations.
자세한 주소는 아니지만 받을 사람이 불분명하겠지만 누군가에게 보내놓으면 계속해서 떠돌다가 누군가에게 또 닿을 수도 있다는 그런 좀 기대, 희망, 설레임이 가장 크고.
The beaming of the music into space was made possible by KAIST, Korea's leading science and technology institute, using its satellite technology. Radio waves once carried music through the air. Now satellite antennas are sending it into space. K-pop is no longer just a genre, but it may become a new form of communication with the unknown. An official from the institute spoke about the project's significance.
This is meaningful as it fuses technology, media art and K-pop. It lets us dream about distant space and even the possibility of unknown life.
He added that while Korea may be a relative latecomer in the space industry, this kind of cultural and technological experiment could unlock new possibilities, like one day creating art inspired by signals from space. The project also involved a media artist who made visual artwork to accompany the song into space. And he said this project represents more than just sending art.
We might even gain a K-pop fan out there. But more than that, this is about transmitting the emotional voice of humanity into space. It wasn't just sound or signal, but human emotion. And when we get to meet the unknown, art could be our most powerful language to communicate.
He said this is only the beginning, with more art-tech experiments merging pop culture with science and technology already in the pipeline. And as those ideas take flight, a new creative lab may just be the opening in what's now called the era of art tech. Park Eun-woo, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, efforts are also underway to preserve the culinary practices of monks here in Korea, as temple food not simply nourishes the body but also the mind and soul. Our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin files this report.
Grinding, chopping, boiling. Here, cooking is more than just technique. It's meditation in motion. These colorful ingredients are being transformed into Korean temple cuisine. Soybean soup, cucumber kimchi, and wild greens over noodles. Each dish reflects core Buddhist values, respect for life, and a ban on 5 pungent vegetables believed to disturb inner peace.
I've learned so much, not just about recipes, but about food itself. I used to think vegetarian dishes lacked flavor, but temple food is delicious. It feels light, comforting, and good for your health.
I never really knew how to cook with wild greens, but now I finally understand how to use ingredients I've always seen at the market.
And Korean temple food, like this, has finally received the recognition it deserves. Because last month, the Korea Heritage Service announced plans to designate it as a national intangible cultural heritage, literally food for thought. The agency cited the cuisine's historical continuity, cultural uniqueness, and its ability to evolve with the times. Since the introduction of Buddhism to ancient Korea during the Three Kingdoms period, temple food has been passed down through generations.
In Northeast Asia, especially Korea, monks have traditionally farmed, foraged and cooked their meals, creating a distinct culinary tradition. Korean temple food centers not only on vegetables and grains, but also on fermented foods like jang and kimchi. That's why it's increasingly seen as both nourishing and in harmony with nature.
Because temple cuisine has long been practiced across Korea, the cultural core of Korean Buddhism spent years systematizing its philosophy, core ingredients, and preparation methods. The upcoming heritage designation is the result of that effort. And next, the Buddhist community is setting its sights on a larger goal, becoming a UNESCO intangible cultural heritage. A tradition that treats food as medicine and the body as a temple, now preparing to take its place on the global stage. 송유진, Arirang News.
And starting next Monday, that is April 21st, those interested in learning Korean online can register for remote classes with the King Sejong Institute Foundation. The Institute's online platform, which currently carries lectures on Korean culture, is offering real-time Korean language classes with one-on-one feedback and assignment evaluation. The second semester is set to begin on May 12th with the ambition to reach over 90,000 learners via some 1,000 courses across 4 semesters. Courses range from beginner to advanced. Also next week here in Korea, author Han Kang's first publication after winning the Nobel Prize in Literature last December is set to hit local stores on Thursday. Our Yoon-jin has more.
Nobel Prize-winning South Korean author Han Kang will be publishing a new book. Not a novel this time, but a book of essays. The collection is expected to feature about 10 pieces, including her Nobel lecture, previously published poems, and diary-like essays that reflect on her experiences with poetry, gardening, and the act of writing itself. According to the publisher Munji Publishing, some of the content will be previously released works from literary magazines. But roughly half of the new book will be first-time publications. Taken from her Nobel lecture, the book titled Light and Thread is one she has been preparing for over a year.
What is love? It is the gold thread connecting between our hearts. Inside my chest, in my beating heart, between our hearts, the golden thread that joins, a thread that emanates light.
This will be Han's third essay collection since her first in 2003. Meanwhile, she's also progressing with her next novel, a long-awaited final installment of her so-called winter trilogy to follow her 2015 While a Single Snowflake Melts and 2018 Farewell short stories. That novel is expected to be released as early as later this year.
There are authors that write until they are 70 or 80, but that requires a lot of luck. For the next 6 years, I want to focus on writing these 3 books that have been rolling in my head.
After receiving her Nobel Prize, Han Kang has rejected public appearances to focus on her writing. Even with the latest release of her essay collection, which is set to be available in bookstores April 24th, she is not expected to give interviews or hold any events to promote it. Yoon-jin, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. In the U.S., a shooting on Thursday at Florida State University has led to 2 deaths and at least 5 injuries. The suspect has been identified as a 20-year-old student at FSU and the son of a local sheriff's deputy. Authorities report that he used his mother's handgun in the attack. The incident began around 11:50 a.m. local time near the university's student union. There were 8 to 10 gunshots before responding officers confronted the shooter, who was shot after failing to comply with commands and then taken into custody. The 2 people who lost their lives were not students. One of the injured remains in critical condition. The motive behind the shooting is still under investigation. It was the second significant campus shooting at FSU following a 2014 incident at the university library. In Russia, the Supreme Court has officially removed Afghanistan's ruling Taliban from its list of banned terrorist organizations, a designation that had been in place since 2003. While the Taliban remains unrecognized as Afghanistan's official government, the ruling on Thursday local time reflects Moscow's intent to normalize ties. It also reflects efforts to collaborate with the Taliban to counter threats posed by Islamic State Khorasan, which has been responsible for deadly attacks in both Russia and Afghanistan. Russia's attitude toward the Taliban has changed over the past 2 decades. It was the first country to open a business representative office in Kabul after the Taliban's takeover, seeing the group as a strategic partner to advance its political and economic interests. In Italy, near Naples, 4 people died and 1 person was critically injured when a cable car crashed on Thursday. The victims included 2 British tourists, an Israeli woman, and the cable car operator. According to reports, the cable car crashed to the ground after a traction cable snapped during its ascent. The incident occurred on Monte Fado, a popular tourist destination known for its panoramic views of the Bay of Naples. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, who is visiting the U.S., extended her condolences to the victims' families from Washington, D.C., and emphasized the government's commitment to uncovering the cause of the tragedy. Finally, in the UK, author F. Scott Fitzgerald's classic 1925 novel, The Great Gatsby, has been brought to life on the musical stage in London's West End. While an official opening is scheduled for April 24th and previews began on April 11th, the show's launch event was held on Wednesday. The production features Jamie Moscato as Gatsby, Frances Mailey McCann as Daisy Buchanan, and Corbin Bleu as Nick Carraway, the narrator. After its Broadway run, the adaptation received praise for its vibrant energy and lavish production, allowing audiences to immerse themselves in Jay Gatsby's dazzling world through a theatrical experience. The musical will run at the London Coliseum until September 7th. Choi Ji-hee, Arirang News.
Yesterday saw the highest temperature of this spring in many areas, and these high temperatures continued today throughout the country. In the southeast, it was as hot as summer, with daytime temperatures rising to nearly 30 degrees Celsius around the Gyeongsangdo provinces, which is shown as red on the map. The temperatures will drop a bit with rain across the country tomorrow. Rain will begin in the northern parts of Gyeonggi-do province and northern parts of Gangwon-do province tomorrow morning, and rain clouds will spread across the country from the afternoon to the night. Loud rain is expected in the center parts of the country with strong gusts of wind and thunder and lightning. Tomorrow morning, Seoul and Gyeongju will start off at 14 degrees, Busan and Jeju at 15 degrees. Highs will move up to 19 degrees in Seoul and Busan, 25 degrees in Daejeon, Gwangju and Gyeongju. Warm conditions with daytime temperatures of around 20 degrees will continue for the time being. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Thank you for watching. Our panel session is up next.